Hello and welcome to this YouTube video about the classic stars of the UFC. Mixed martial arts has grown in popularity over the years, and the UFC has played a significant role in this. There have been many great fighters in the history of the UFC, and in this video, we will be discussing some of the classic stars of the sport. First up, we have Royce Gracie. Royce Gracie is considered one of the pioneers of modern-day mixed martial arts. He competed in the early UFC events and was a dominant force in the sport. Gracie's style of fighting was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he learned from his father and uncle. He won the first UFC tournament by defeating 3 opponents in one night, all of whom were much larger than him. He went on to win 3 more UFC tournaments and cemented his place as one of the greatest fighters of all time. Gracie's contribution to the sport of MMA cannot be overstated. Next, we have Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was also a pioneer of MMA and competed in the early UFC events. He was known for his submission skills and was the first ever UFC Superfight Champion. Shamrock was also a professional wrestler and had a successful career in the WWE. He returned to the UFC in 2002 and had some memorable fights, including his rivalry with Tito Ortiz. Shamrock was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2003 and is still regarded as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. Another classic star of the UFC is Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz is one of the most popular fighters in UFC history and was known for his brash personality and trash talking. He was the UFC light heavyweight champion from 2000 to 2003 and successfully defended his title 5 times. Ortiz had some memorable rivalries with fighters such as Ken Shamrock, Chuck Liddell, and Randy Couture. He retired from MMA in 2012 and is now a successful businessman. Moving on, we have Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell was a dominant force in the UFC during his prime and was known for his knockout power. He was the UFC light heavyweight champion from 2005 to 2007 and successfully defended his title 4 times. Liddell had some memorable fights with Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture, and Wanderlei Silva. He retired from MMA in 2010 and is now a UFC ambassador. Next, we have Randy Couture. Randy Couture is a former UFC heavyweight and light heavyweight champion and is known for his wrestling skills. He was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2006 and is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. Couture had some memorable fights with Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, and Brock Lesnar. He retired from MMA in 2011 and is now a successful actor. Moving on, we have Georges St-Pierre. Georges St-Pierre is a former UFC welterweight champion and is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. He had a dominant reign as champion from 2008 to 2013 and successfully defended his title 9 times. St-Pierre had some memorable fights with fighters such as Matt Hughes, John Fitch, and Nick Diaz. He retired from MMA in 2019 but has recently teased a potential comeback. Another classic star of the UFC is Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is a former UFC middleweight champion and is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. He had a dominant reign as champion from 2006 to 2013 and successfully defended his title 10 times. Silva had some memorable fights with fighters such as Rich Franklin, Dan Henderson, and Chael Sonnen. He retired from MMA in 2020 but is still considered one of the greatest strikers in the sport's history. Next, we have Jon Jones. Jon Jones is a former UFC light heavyweight champion and is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. He had a dominant reign as champion from 2011 to 2015 and successfully defended his title 8 times. Jones had some memorable fights with fighters such as Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson, and Vitor Belfort. Despite some controversies outside the octagon, Jones' talent inside the cage is undeniable. Moving on, we have Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is a former UFC women's bantamweight champion and is considered one of the pioneers of women's MMA. She had a dominant reign as champion from 2012 to 2015 and successfully defended her title 6 times. Rousey had some memorable fights with fighters such as Miesha Tate, Kat Zingano, and Holly Holm. She retired from MMA in 2016 and is now a successful actress and professional wrestler. Another classic star of the UFC is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a former UFC featherweight and lightweight champion and is known for his brash personality and trash talking. He had a dominant reign as champion from 2015 to 2016 and successfully defended his title once. McGregor had some memorable fights with fighters such as Nate Diaz, Jose Aldo, and Eddie Alvarez. He has since taken a break from MMA but is still regarded as one of the biggest stars in the sport's history. Last but not least, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov is a former UFC lightweight champion and is known for his dominant wrestling skills. He had a dominant reign as champion from 2018 to 2020 and successfully defended his title twice. Nurmagomedov had some memorable fights with fighters such as Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. He retired from MMA in 2020 with an undefeated record of 29-0 and is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. In conclusion, the classic stars of the UFC have played a significant role in the sport's growth and popularity. From pioneers like Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock to modern-day stars like Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, these fighters have provided fans with some of the most memorable moments in MMA history. Their contributions to the sport will always be remembered, and their legacy will continue to inspire the next generation of UFC fighters.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share.